Welcome, everyone. I'm Alfred Lambremont Webre, and today we have the extraordinary privilege and pleasure to be with the official Venus historian, Dr. Raymond Keller, who's going to bring us part two of Wisdom of the Ages um, regarding Venus. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Dr. Keller, Ray, to take us into part two. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alfred. It's a pleasure to be here with you and with all of your viewers. As we were speaking last week about the various philosophies of Earth, and I had mentioned that as a theosophist, I felt it was very important to study comparative religions, to look for those philosophies and those ideas that are most parallel to the Venusians and other extraterrestrials, which I found a lot in common in Sufism. So I wanted to talk about that today.
Oh, excellent.
Okay, so we're going to go and see that slide. Okay. Slideshow from the current slide. Okay, the origins of Sufism are shrouded in mystery. The Sufis are practitioners of an ancient spiritual discipline whose origins have never been traced or dated. Unlike most religions, you could trace them back to a certain period of time or even to a certain date. But the Sufism is like an amalgamation of different philosophies that have been adapted over time. The infusion of their thoughts has taken place in many regions and periods of history. Though closely associated with Islam, the Sufis are at home in all religions. This is the same thing that I found with our brothers and sisters from other planets. They're pretty much at home with all religions and all peoples. So they blend in very nicely. There's a secret teaching. Sufism is the secret teaching within all religions. The Prophet Muhammad once said, "He who hears the voice of the Sufi people and does not say Amen is recorded in God's presence as one of the heedless." So the Sufis have an important message for us in respecting other religions and getting along with all peoples. And in that context, all sacred scriptures are honored. Sufis respect all peoples of a book, meaning those who cherish and follow the teachings of their own religion's sacred scriptures, whether they be Buddhist, Christian, Jewish, Muslim, Zoroastrian, etc. And I know that you've done much work with the Urantia, and there's many other people working with other scriptures, Gnostic texts, the New and the Old Testament, the Oapse, many the Upanishads, and many great avenues of knowledge have come our way through sacred writings. So the Sufis honor all of these, as do our brothers and sisters of other planets. The Sufis are not bound by dogma. Because the Sufis are not a sect, they are not bound by any religious dogmas. There's nobody in a higher authority telling them what they have to believe and how they have to worship God. They have no regular place of worship, no sacred city, no monastic organization, and no religious devices. And they come from all walks of life. And I could say the same thing about the extraterrestrials that are here on Earth. Some have been living and working among us for hundreds of years, maybe thousands of years in some cases. And they come in all walks of life from many different backgrounds and many different countries. Then we have the bonds of friendship. Sufis commonly address one another as friends. This is the same title that Jesus said we should call each other our friends. Sufi schools gather around particular teachers, but there is no graduation exercises, and they exist solely for the convenience of those who work to perfect their studies and thus better themselves through close association with other Sufis, and I might add other enlightened people or seekers along the path. And the world awakens. There are an estimated 50 million Sufis in the world today. They don't make a lot of noise like other religions, and they're not out there proselytizing. But if you are a seeker of the light, a seeker of enlightenment, sooner or later you're going to come across the Sufis and their teachings. The Sufis try to rid themselves of ambition, greed, intellectual pride, and blind obedience to customs and traditions. They show equal respect to all, from the lofty noble to the humble street sweeper. Maybe a king or a street sweeper, but sooner or later we dance with the reaper. And love is all you need. Just as our physical body goes through various stages of development, so does our spiritual body. And as our spiritual body grows, we acquire more spectacular powers, for which the dynamic force is love. Enlightenment comes with love. And in the epistle of 1 John, it says, God is love. So this is the basis of understanding and true communication and heartfelt empathy. Metaphysics properly applied. Sufism has stressed the practicality of their viewpoint. For them, metaphysics are useless without practical application to prudent human behavior. Some have served as exemplars of humankind when they allowed themselves to develop the powers latent within them and then place themselves at the service of all. These are the ones that you can emulate. I'd rather see a sermon than hear one any day. I'd rather one would walk with me than merely point the way. Sufism as a societal nutrient. Sufism serves to nourish the development of individuals and hence society as a whole. But Sufism is not intended to subsist within society in an unaltered form. Sufis do not erect systems as one would build an edifice. It is passed on by means of the human example, the teacher. And planetary influences are important to Sufism, as they are to our extraterrestrial brothers and sisters. You know, Stephen Hawking once said that the universe remembers everything. And all the positions of the planets and stars through all times in relation to the Earth. And just my own personal opinion is that when we go through all the cycles of birth and rebirth in these incarnations on the material plane, that in the bigger picture, the universe is existing as a harmonic moving through time, and it will collapse in on itself, and everything will start all over again. So it's kind of you could call it predestination, an ultimate kind of predestination. But in their electronic structure, humans partake of the sun and of light. In their molecular structure, humans are like the planets and therefore relate to them. We're all made of the same stuff as the planets that we live on and the stars that these planets orbit on. Thus, in the way all these move with different speeds, they are harmonized and synchronized in sacred ritual dances among the Sufis, extending themselves from the earth to the cosmos. So this is one way that they feel they are in touch with the rhythm of our solar system. Sufis believe the entire universe is filled with intelligent beings, some directly commissioned to help us advance our society here on earth. One of the Sufi holy men, one of the sages, Rumi, in the 13th century, said that he believed that any time on the earth there were at least 4,000 angels that were helping us, and maybe more in times of crisis and imminent need. So that we have the Sufi dance of the whirling dervishes. A Sufi dancer essentially rotates about their own axis, and through this movement experience alternate states of consciousness and mystical ecstasy, while her or his soul emerges from earthly ties to enter the kingdom of God or enter the etheric or celestial plane. The principal dancer is the sun, and the others represent the planets, simulating the solar system. The planetary impact on the astral and the earth planes are explored in the West as well. We have our own tradition of famous astrologers or psychics and seers who relied upon astrology for clues in which the timeline, our timeline is moving. Among them was Nostradamus in France, 1503 to 1566, and Edgar Cayce from Hopkinsville, Kentucky, known as the Sleeping Prophet, 1877 through 1945. And for those that are here in North America, by driving to Virginia Beach, Virginia, you can look at the archives of Edgar Cayce and many of his readings, not only about ancient history, but individual readings for people, helping them diagnose maladies that maybe the doctors overlook. There's a UFO contactee message from George Adamski, one of the most notable contactees of the late 1940s through the early 1950s, especially. And he said that all the planets in the solar system are inhabited. They either have some indigenous form of life in this dimension or higher dimensions, or they were colonized by beings from yet other planets or even other solar systems. So Adamski preached that what the aliens told him, that the universe was a big school. And if you got things right here on Earth, when you died, you would be born onto another planet as in a graduation. Life in the universe was about learning, wisdom, and growth. Adamski's spacemen claim that the Buddha, Jesus, and Muhammad and others were enlightened extraterrestrial souls or avatars who had incarnated on Earth in order to help humanity. So in the last episode, we looked at some of those more notable avatars in human history. So if you're watching this and you want to find out who some of them were, you can view the first part of Wisdom of the Ages. So astrology in the earth plane. Insofar as humankind struggles with mortality on the earth plane, we are affected by the myriad mutations of both the heavens and the earth. Everything is really interconnected. And astrology is a real science. Of course, the influence of the planets in our solar system and their position along the plane of the ecliptic in relation to the Earth um, affected certain characteristics and qualities among people born under those signs, under those stellar positions, and so we know that uh, these later by the Greeks and the Romans and others, the planets of the solar system were anthropomorphized. In other words, they were recognized with and bestowed human qualities. And this is where we really get the origin of astrology. So the significance of astrology is the study of humankind's response to planetary stimuli. Celestial bodies have no conscious benevolence or animosity. But we anthropomorphize these influences, but they do emit both positive and negative radiations. Of themselves, they do not help or hurt humanity, but they do offer a lawful channel for the outward operation of cause and effect equilibriums that each one has set in motion in the past. On the day and hour that you were born, the celestial rays were in harmony with your individual karma. So many of the civilizations that are on Earth presently, and that also that have come and gone, have relied on some degree of astrology for predicting the general trend in individuals' lives and where our planet was moving along the timeline. So we want to keep astrology in the correct perspective. All of creation is harmoniously interlinked, and the balance of the universe is rooted in reciprocity. Therefore, humankind must deal with two sets of forces. The first is the tumult within the individual soul that constantly ensues because of the tug of war carried out between physical and ethereal forces. And secondly, the outer powers of nature are always in a process of disintegration or entropy. Like I mentioned before in Stephen Hawking's theory, eventually the universe will just expand so far, and all 92 trillion of the suns that compose our universe right now, and it'll just collapse in on itself, and then it'll start all over again. I like there's a novel by Kurt Vonnegut, Slaughterhouse-Five, and he's dealing with these aliens from a distant moon called Tralfamadore, where he gets beamed over to there. And they tell him that the universe dies when a Tralfamadorian pilot test pilot is checking out a new kind of fuel, and it explodes and takes the universe with it, and that this explosion has always happened and always will. I like that story a lot. And I think they made a movie of it too in 1971, Slaughterhouse-Five. So, usefulness of astrology. The wise one studies astrology to optimize goodly influences and cosmic radiations and overcome negative influences. On the astral plane, this individual also realizes that unity with the higher self also dominates matter, and that one soul is ever free. So my friend Omnek Onek, she comes from the astral plane of Venus. And speaking of Venus, our first stop. So Venus is the planet I most closely identify with. Today, it is established that Venus is the second planet out from the sun. Venus and the rest of the other planets of our solar system all formed at the same time, approximately 4.6 billion years ago. Before this time, the region of space that is now occupied by our solar system was filled with a large and diffuse cloud of cold molecular hydrogen. There must have been some kind of celestial event that caused this cloud to collapse, possibly a supernova explosion in our galactic sector or gravitational disturbances generated by a passing star. And the mystical is all about us. Among Native Americans in North America, the symbol that you see here, which also appears as the state symbol of New Mexico and is on the New Mexico state flag, represents the morning star. And the morning star symbolizes to the Native Americans hope and guidance and is the brightest star in the sky at dawn. The morning star is actually the planet Venus as seen in the eastern sky around dawn. It is used by many Native American tribes and usually has meanings related to past spirits and ancestors. In many of the Native American cultures, the ancestors were represented themselves as stars, such as grandfathers, grandmothers, great-grandfathers, up to as far back as 8 generations. So the Great Plains Indians honor the morning star as a sign of courage and purity of spirit. The ghost dance religion used it as a symbol of the coming renewal of tradition and resurrection for the heroes of the past. So just like the Greeks, the Romans, the Babylonians, even the Israelites, they all attach significant meaning to the morning star. Even the Maya attached great importance to the planet Venus. They created a framework of cycles for predicting the future morning star risings of Venus for centuries to come. With this calendrical system, they could also predict solstice and eclipse dates. The 2 cycles involved in this calendar system were the vague year of 365 days, the Hab, and the sacred cycle of 260 days, the Zolkin. These 2 cycles synchronize with each other every 52 years. So the 52-year calendar of the Maya, much more accurate than our current calendar, our own, is based on the revolutions of Venus around the sun and its relationship to the Earth. The Maya also used this sacred framework of days to track the astronomical movements of Venus. Mythologies developed around Venus and the day signs associated with its risings. The Popol Vuh, or the Quechua Maya, is one example of how the cycle of Venus was mythologized. In early Western civilization in Mesopotamia, we know that Venus worship gave rise to astronomy, science, math, and probably civilization itself, as did the Babylonian astrologers gazing out from their ziggurats, the huge towers, astronomical observation platforms. The early sky watchers of Mexico noticed that 5 Venus cycles equals 8 years. So it's in a perfect Fibonacci number relationship. And all of this is not just coincidence. So Venus is very important to us here on Earth. When you die, it is only your components that are in this dimension of ours, this layer of the largest molecules. It is only then them that get shed. On the other hand, our bodies in other and lighter dimensions are not destroyed. These would be what we would generally refer to as an oversoul. This is from the book by Sarah Zettel. Now, Venus is an extremely hostile environment and as such presents a lot of challenges for a science fiction author who wants to create life there. However, as I began to research it more thoroughly, I found myself intrigued by the possibility the world offers. So we learned from the Borderland Sciences Research Association, from the Qinghai, the Cirrus from Taiwan, and Omnek Onek and others, that Venus exists in many dimensions, not just the physical one. A word about Venusians, perhaps one of the most, if not the most benevolent alien races in the galaxy. Pure Venusians are very trusting beings. They are always trying to reach out and help those whom they feel are suffering terribly, never thinking about being rewarded or commended for their kind deeds. Earthly residents take unfair advantage of a Venusian's innate capacity to openly embrace and reach out to their planet. But our friends still choose to return to this plane of conflicts, assisting in its slow but progressive spiritual evolution, regardless of the negative response to their gestures. This planet is indeed fortunate to feel the unconditional vibrations of love emanating from our sister planet Venus. So Venus at its closest approach is only 25 million miles from the Earth. And Mars, of course, is further out, the fourth planet out from the sun, and being 48 million miles at its closest approach. So Venus is the closest planet to the Earth. The ministry of angels. Let your brotherly love continue. Do not forget hospitality, for through it some unknown to themselves entertain angels. Angels unawares. That's Paul's letter to the Hebrews in chapter 13, verse 2. So this is all very important because the connection exists between angels and aliens. The Reverend Billy Graham has stated that don't be surprised if you find out that angels are coming to Earth in flying saucers. And we know the universe is a big place. Everything exists out there. And like George Adamski and Helena Blavatsky said, intelligences fill the immensity of space. So we're definitely not alone out there. We're not alone anywhere out there. Even the rays that come from the sun contain sparks of divine intelligence, as the Egyptians carved such rays coming down as tongues of fire on the cartouches on their temples and pyramids. Yes.
Yes, right. Thank you very much. I have one question which came up. It's been said to us that Venus is an ascended society. That is, they have third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and even seventh and beyond. And it's been said that Earth is a society, a planet that is capable of and in ascension. It's at third, but then there's a capable to go to fourth and beyond. Could you say, are there any indications that Earth is in ascension to go to fourth? And
Yes, many
when,
people.
yeah. And if so, when will Earth go to the fourth dimension? Are there any indications? Thank you.
Oh, yes. Well, many people, Alfred, have already translated. They've already been ascended to to higher realms where they've been taught and have come back as teachers or avatars among us. We're not going to leave anybody behind, in other words. And yes, in the plan of things, even when we read in the Bible, in the book of Revelation, it says that the earth will be turned into like a crystal sea of glass. It will become a world celestial. And then in 1 Corinthians chapter 15, it talks about the different kinds of worlds, physical worlds, um, telestial, terrestrial, and celestial worlds that exist out there at various lighter densities. So yes, eventually our planet will itself ascend to these higher realms. But right now we're in a very precarious time, and we're on the brink of going into space, establishing a spacefaring civilization where we'll meet these higher entities. But we can't bring aggressions, imperialism and aggression and warfare into outer space. Otherwise, they won't allow that. And I can't say what exactly they're going to do about that, but that's a big concern. And also that we're playing around with things that they experimented with long ago and decided to put down, to take a spiritual path instead. So we're experimenting with technologies that are self-destructive to ourselves as a species. So we've got to get behind all that, or past all that, and allow our spirituality and our spiritual development to surpass our technology before we can pass over, like some have already done, into what John A. Keel, the late anomalist, used to say is over into the super spectrum. So we know that there's advanced beings and others that are already here on the earth, watching us, helping us from behind the scenes, behind the veil, so to speak. He called it the super spectrum. Sometimes we call it ghosts or manifestations of supernatural phenomena. But yes, all these things that you asked about are real.
Right, right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, thank you very much. This has been an extraordinary series of um, presentations that you've made, and I know that there's a great movement among in the exopolitical world that we've been following as to ascension. Everybody is concerned, large groups of people in our exopolitical world is concerned with ascension to the fourth dimension. And it's a great thing that people are following now.
Oh, yes. And I try to provide accounts of individual ascensions, which Annalise Guerin, who herself ascended or translated, um, her story is in there. And in my latest book, The Real Resident Aliens, I talk about Chief Kachanga in the Hopi Nation out in Hotavilla, Arizona, back in the early 2000s when he was 112 years old. He walked out into the desert. He left the tribal meeting. They were gathered in a circle and a flying saucer came down. And then he turned into a being of light and got aboard it and took off. So these things are these things are really happening all the time. And I just want people to know that, it could happen to them. But it'll increasingly happen as we approach a time of uh, uh, for the total ascension of humankind. But as that time comes, um, Jesus said that his father didn't even tell him when the the exact date or time when that would happen, and he told his apostles that and told them to be careful to watch the signs of the times, because then you'll know, you'll have a sense, you'll have a feeling when the time is nearing.
Right, right. Well, we certainly want to thank you for everything that you're sharing with our audiences. You've elevated us to a new level. So thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome, Alfred. Thank you. It's always a pleasure.
Very good. Um, is there anything more that you wanted to add?
Yeah, let me I'll be right back. I'm going to go get I want to read something about that from the Gospel of Thomas, one of the
Okay.
Gnostic
Oh,
texts.
good.
I'll be right back. It's
Good.
just a short verse, but it's apropos to all of this.
Excellent.
I'm back.
Okay.
This is the Morning Star edition of the Gospels of Thomas and Mary Magdalene. Was worked on by myself and a team of wonderful people at Mount Shasta in California. We introduced it at Mount Shasta at the Summer Venus Conference in 2021, and also at the Glastonbury Abbey. And there's a section in here where Thomas records Jesus's teachings about the end times. I'm going to read that because I think it answers a lot of people's questions about it. And let's see. Okay. Well, let me start with chapter 96, which is short. From the teachings of the Master, the disciples came to understand that an individual soul was constituted of the fleshly body and the spirit. Keeping this in mind, Jesus informed us, woe to the flesh that depends on the soul, and woe to the soul that depends on the flesh. The spirit is linked to the soul for its duration on the material plane. Unlinking the spirit from the soul, thus leaving the flesh behind, is what sets it free. Then the next section is 97, Thy kingdom come. The disciples inquired of the Master, when will the kingdom come? Jesus replied, it will not get here any sooner by waiting for its arrival. It will not be a matter of simply saying, here it is, or there it is. Rather, the kingdom of the Father is spread out over the entirety of the earth, but there be few who actually see it. So the seed of the kingdom is already there at higher dimensional levels. This is where the avatars and these exalted spirits are coming from that visit us to help us. They've lived lives. They've incarnated on the earth before. They know what we're going through, and they're there to help us as best we can. I've heard many when I was living in China. For example, I heard people tell me about about seeing cities in the clouds materialize, like Shambhala. And I believe that. I believe they're really seeing something. So uh, our um, electromagnetic field of the planet is penetrated by other dimensional realities, and we can see these things. Sometimes the veil will part, and we could see these entities and even fabulous cities. I know in Mount Shasta, many people have actually walked into the mountain to an underground city, an ancient Lemurian colony called Telos that exists underneath there. So these things are quite real, and one day the whole Earth will become a celestial orb.
Right, right. Yes, indeed, indeed. So thank you very much. It's very, very elevating. I can feel
Thank you, Alfred.
I can feel myself elevating just listening. I can feel parts of my body and spirit feel elevated just listening.
Oh, thank you so much.
Very good. So thank you very much. And uh, just so that the listening audience knows, these interviews that we've been doing with yourself and with the late Rob Potter will be hopefully incorporated into a new book that will be appearing in early 2026. So we'll be working with you in that regard.
Thank you, Alfred.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay then. Bye-bye.